You know this story. You grew up with it. The blue god, the divine child who stole butter and danced on serpents. The young man who played the flute and made the rivers stop flowing to listen. The charioteer who spoke the Bhagavad Gita on a battlefield and gave humanity one of its most profound spiritual texts. The eighth avatar of Vishnu, God in human form. Krishna, the most beloved figure in the Hindu tradition, worshipped by hundreds of millions, temples in every corner of India, his name on the lips of the dying and the newly born. You know it like this. Krishna was the divine guide, the one who came to restore Dharma when it had been lost. He counseled Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and spoke the eternal truth of the Gita, that the soul is deathless, that action without attachment is the highest path, that God is present in everything. He was pure love, pure consciousness. The smiling blue god who danced in Vrindavan and wept at Radha's departure. That is the story you know. Now let me tell you what the Mahabharata itself, the original text, not the devotional tradition built around it, actually says about what Krishna did, what he knew, and what it cost. Because the Mahabharata's Krishna is not the smiling god of the temples. He is something far more difficult to worship. The version of Krishna that most people carry is built primarily from the Bhagavata Purana and the devotional traditions of bhakti, the path of love and surrender to God. This Krishna is warmth, playfulness, divine love. This Krishna is accessible, comforting, the one you call in your darkest moment. The Mahabharata's Krishna is different. He is described in the Mahabharata as a master strategist, a political genius, someone who understands human nature at its most fundamental level and uses that understanding with absolute precision. He is called Yogeshvara, the lord of all strategy, Madhusudena, the destroyer of demons, Janardana, the one who creates and destroys. Simultaneously, these are not the names of a gentle god. These are the names of someone who plays at a level where individual human lives are pieces on a board. And the Mahabharata does not hide this. It shows it repeatedly, specifically, in scene after scene where Krishna does things that no simple divine guide would do. Things that, if any other character did them, we would call them wrong. Krishna was not surprised by the war. This is the detail that changes everything. Before a single arrow was fired at Kurukshetra, before the dice came, before the exile, Krishna knew. He is described in the Mahabharata as having divine foreknowledge. He could see the full arc of what was coming, the war, the deaths, the specific fates of specific people. He knew Abhimanyu, his own nephew, the son of Arjuna, a boy he had watched grow, would be killed at Kurukshetra. He knew Karna would die there. He knew Duryodhana would die there. He knew the Pandavas would win and then spend their lives broken by what winning cost them. He knew all of it. And he went to Hastinapura as a peace ambassador anyway. The peace mission is presented in the Mahabharata as Krishna's genuine attempt to prevent the war. He goes to Duryodhana, he offers terms, he pleads, he even offers to reduce the Pandavas' demand to 5 villages, just 5, to avoid the war. Duryodhana refuses, the war becomes inevitable. But think about what Krishna knew when he made that peace offer. He knew Duryodhana would refuse. He had seen it. He knew how this ended before he walked into that court. So what was the peace mission? Was it a genuine attempt to prevent the war? Or was it the last box to check before the war could begin with Dharma's blessing? Let us talk about what Krishna chose at Kurukshetra, because this is where the story becomes truly strange. Before the war began, both Arjuna and Duryodhana came to Krishna asking for his support. Krishna gave them a choice. On one side, his entire army, the Narayani Sena, one of the greatest fighting forces in the known world. On the other side, Krishna himself, alone, but on the condition that he would not fight. He would be present but would not pick up a weapon. Duryodhana, the strategist, chose the army, the rational choice, numbers, force, military strength. Arjuna chose Krishna. The Narayani Sena, Krishna's own army, fought on the side that lost the war. Think about what this means. Krishna gave his own soldiers to the side he knew would lose. He distributed his forces to the losing army and took his presence, his strategy, his foreknowledge, his divine intelligence to the winning side. His soldiers died for a cause he had already seen would fail. They did not know that, he did. And then he stood on a chariot in the middle of the greatest war in Indian history and told Arjuna that death is nothing, that the soul cannot be killed, that to grieve the dead is to misunderstand reality. He said this over the bodies of men he had sent to die. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the most profound texts in human history. This is not in dispute. Its insights into consciousness, action, identity, and liberation have guided billions of people across thousands of years. It is genuinely, extraordinarily beautiful. But look at what it does in the Mahabharata. Arjuna stops the war. He puts down his bow. He says he will not fight. He looks across the battlefield and sees his teachers, his cousins, his grandfather, and he refuses. His refusal is moral. His refusal is human. His refusal is the most understandable thing any person in that story does. And Krishna talks him out of it. In 18 chapters of the most sophisticated philosophy ever spoken on a battlefield, Krishna dismantles every argument Arjuna makes for not fighting. He does not deny that people will die. He does not pretend the war will be painless. He argues something far more radical, that Arjuna's attachment to the outcome, his grief at the thought of killing those he loves, is itself the illusion that the deeper truth requires him to act regardless of the cost. It is a masterpiece of argumentation. It is also the most powerful pro-war speech ever delivered. A god stood on a battlefield and used the deepest truths of the universe to convince a man to kill his family. And we call those truths the Gita. And they are true, and they are also that. The Mahabharata does not hide what Krishna did during the war, it records it, specifically. He engineered the death of Drona, the greatest teacher of his age, by having Yudhishthira, the man famous for never lying, lie to him. Drona's son Ashwatthama was alive, but Krishna arranged for an elephant named Ashwatthama to be killed in battle, and then had Yudhishthira say when Drona asked if his son was dead that Ashwatthama had fallen. When Drona, devastated, lowered his weapons in grief, he was killed. Krishna orchestrated this. He instructed Arjuna to kill Karna while Karna was unarmed, lifting his chariot wheel from mud, defenseless, calling out for the warrior's code to be observed. Krishna told Arjuna to shoot. His justification was a list of every wrong Karna had participated in, not committed alone, participated in. He broke the rules of war, repeatedly, on purpose. He directed Bhima to strike Duryodhana below the waist against the explicit rules of mace combat to deliver the killing blow. When Balarama, Krishna's own brother, protested that this was a dharma, Krishna said nothing. In every case, the person killed deserved what happened to them in the logic of the story's morality. In every case, the killing could not have been achieved by fair means. In every case, Krishna found a way around the rules. The question the Mahabharata asks and does not answer cleanly is this: if the end is dharma, does the means matter? And who decides when the end is truly dharma and not simply the result you wanted? Here is what the Mahabharata actually says Krishna is. Not a guide, not a counselor, not a charioteer who happened to be divine. The Mahabharata says Krishna is Vishnu, the preserver of the universe, the one responsible for maintaining the cosmic balance, not the human balance, not the balance of one dynasty or one war, but the balance of creation itself. From this perspective, everything changes. The Kuru dynasty had become a weight on the earth. The text uses this image explicitly. The earth herself approaches Brahma and Vishnu and says she cannot bear the burden of so many corrupt kings and violent rulers. She asks to be relieved. The Kurukshetra war was not primarily a war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. It was a mechanism for removing the excess weight from the earth. The 18 million dead were not collateral damage. They were the point. Krishna was not guiding the Pandavas to victory. He was using the Pandavas to clean the earth. And he loved them. This is what makes it devastating. He genuinely loved Arjuna. He grieved for Abhimanyu. He wept at the end of the war when everything was over and the Pandavas stood in the ruins of every relationship they had ever had. But he did it anyway. Because at the level he operated, love and use are not opposites. There is one moment in the Mahabharata that almost no one talks about. After the war, after everything, when the Pandavas have won and the cost of winning has become clear, when Yudhishthira has seen all of this and is broken by it, Arjuna asks Krishna to repeat the Gita. He says he has forgotten it. He was so overwhelmed on that battlefield that the words went in and were lost. He needs to hear it again. Krishna's response is extraordinary. He says he cannot repeat it. The exact words, spoken in that exact moment, under those exact conditions, they are gone. He can give Arjuna a summary, he can tell him the essence, but the Gita as it was spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was a unique event that cannot be recreated. Think about what this means. The most important spiritual text in the Hindu tradition was spoken once, in a moment of crisis, by a god who then said he couldn't say it again. It was not meant to be a scripture. It was meant to move one specific person, in one specific moment, to do one specific thing. It worked. 18 million people died, and the earth was relieved of her burden. The story of Krishna has been told across 5,000 years as the story of divine love, of the God who comes to earth to be with his creation, who plays the flute and makes rivers stop, who holds the universe in his mouth and lets his mother see it, who weeps at separation and dances at reunion. All of this is also true. The Mahabharata does not ask you to stop loving Krishna. It asks you to understand what you are loving. You are loving something that operates at a level where the death of 18 million people is an act of cosmic maintenance. Something that can love you completely and use you completely at the same time. Something that tells you the deepest truth about reality while standing on a battlefield it engineered. There is a reason this version of Krishna is rarely taught. Because it demands something from the devotee that simple devotion does not. It demands that you love something you cannot fully understand, that you trust something whose logic operates at a scale you cannot see, that you accept that being loved by something divine does not protect you from being used by it. The Gita says this plainly, if you read it that way. Surrender completely, act without attachment to outcomes, trust the one who sees the whole board. And if you ask what the whole board looks like, if you ask what the plan actually is, Krishna opens his mouth and shows you the universe, and asks if you still want to know. Script by Grey Wall Stories. Every wall holds a story. Some walls hold the entire universe.